Live from the studio at the Northwest Florida School of Biblical Studies, this is Have a Bible Question, where you are part of the program. Now, let's go to the Bible for answers to your Bible questions.
I know that's our revelation sound effect, but we have started dealing with this concept of premillennialism. And we have another form of that we're supposed to answer tonight is, what is postmillennialism? And this is kind of right up your alley, Troy, so I'm going to toss it your way.
All right. So there's a chart that we have that we've been using, and you can find this chart on the internet. I've modified it just a little bit to clarify some of it, but this chart that we have shows there's 4 different views, and really there's more than what you see here. Today we're going to be talking, as Guyton said, about post-millennialism. That's number 3 there. And I'll tell you right up front that there are multiple versions of post-millennialism. However, this is a good representation of what it means. And basically, it's kind of like what you see on the chart there, the picture, and it is that there's a time frame when there will be 1,000 years of a physical reign or reign of Jesus Christ, and then will come the end of the day of judgment. The other flavor or version of this is that they don't take the 1,000 years literal. It's more of a figurative view, kind of like amillennialism, which we'll talk about later, but they don't take a literal view of it, and they just say that right now we're kind of in the church, what they call the church period, but then there's going to come a time that is called the golden age. These are the terms that they like to use, the golden age of whenever everything is just going to get better and better, and more people are going to obey the gospel, and more people are going to be part of the church. And then Jesus is going to come. And this is called that's why it's called post-millennialism. So it's a buildup of this. Now, all of this comes from Revelation chapter 20.
So why don't we believe in it?
The reason thank you, keeping me on track. The reason we don't believe in it is because of Revelation chapter 20. People will go to that chapter where it talks about the 1,000 years, and they want to make it literal. And if you just go there, and we've talked about this many times on this program, context.
Amen.
And we've talked about also the fact that sometimes the Bible uses what's called figurative language. It uses different forms. There's poetry and things like that, and you got to take that into account. And in the midst of that where that 1,000 years is, 1,000 years is in the midst of all of this figurative language. That is clearly figurative language. It talks about Jesus being the lamb. Well, he's not really a lamb. Talks about all kinds of other things that are clearly figurative, but all of a sudden we're going to make this 1,000 years literal. So in a nutshell, postmillennialism is a false doctrine that is based off of a literal interpretation of Revelation chapter 20. And even in that, they've taken a couple of different versions, depends on the ones who believe in this. It has gone mainstream in certain denominations. It's not as common as premillennialism, but it is a false doctrine.
Man, see, that's why I threw it to you. I knew you could handle that. Very good synopsis of it. Hey, Ray, bring up the chart again. I want to point something out to Troy. I got an idea for you. You know, you're talking about the flavors.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me kind of Neapolitan ice cream. I was thinking you put an ice cream cone on here with the different flavors, and it'd make a pretty cool little chart, wouldn't it?
It would. Ray, do you have that other chart that I emailed to you? Could you bring that up? So here's another chart that I use often. And this is one of the reasons why people come up with all these doctrines. And what this chart represents is basically your point of view, how you view the book of Revelation, or even the Bible, mainly Revelation. And you've seen this before, Guyton.
Yep.
And so, you know, the futurist is the one who thinks that all the prophecies in the Revelation are going to happen still later on, which makes no sense because Yeah, what did John say? These things shall shortly come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the preterist, who thinks that all prophecies, now we're talking about everything in the book of Revelation,
the coming of Jesus
is already been done.
A lot of times, and this one gets confusing because a lot of people, they just keep changing the names. It's, because at one time it was the 80-70 doctrine, then the Max King doctrine, and then the preterist, and then realized eschatology. There's so many different terms, because basically it'll be refuted, and then it's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this, and they try and just give it a little different flair to it.
Flavors.
They put sprinkles on it.
on that Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah.
And then that third one you see there, historist, that's the one that a lot of times you'll see, this is real popular, that for example, the 7 churches that you read about in Revelation 2 and 3, those are, they say those are representations of times of history. Mm-hmm. And so that, like right now, we're in the Ephesus period or something like that. And then the last one, spiritualist, is a recurrence of prophecies during the dispensation. Right now, we are in the Christian dispensation, and it will end whenever Jesus comes back. And so all the things, and we've talked about this, that's why we've talked about it so much, that's why we have a special soundbite for Revelation, is because there's lots of questions about this. And we've said it over and over that, for example, the 1,000 years has a spiritual meaning. We're in the 1,000 years now. Tribulation has a spiritual meaning. We're in the tribulation now. And lots of things in there have spiritual meanings, or they have representation that are timeless.